Donald Trump today will sit down with one of the most popular podcast hosts in America, Joe Rogan, as he makes his biggest play yet for young male voters. The appeal obvious. With more than 14 million followers on Spotify, Rogan's potential audience dwarfs the population of any of the 7 battleground states. Trump has been going on other podcasts targeted to a younger male audience as well, and at least for some voters we talked with, it's working.
He talks like I talk with my friends, and it's very familiar.
You don't see that a lot in politics.
No, it's an old guy, but he's a little younger than the other old candidates. So
that's interesting. So he comes off like one of the guys, basically.
Yeah, basically.
I was just thinking about my choice, who I'm going to vote for, and everything Kamala said just doesn't appeal to me. And I think that as a person, you got to vote for the candidate and not for the policy, and I don't trust Kamala to run this country.
I want to bring in MSNBC political contributor and director of polling at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics, John Della Volpe. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Times titled, "Trump's Bro-Whispering Could Cost Democrats Too Many Young Men." Tim Miller is back with us as well. So I know, John, that you have been talking to lots of young male voters this cycle. Tell us what you found.
Well, I think, Chris, if you ask the second question to those young men that we just saw, you find I would argue, a crisis of confidence. You will quickly hear their concerns about keeping a roof over their head, their concerns about a job in the future, their concerns about being financially independent. This is a group of young people, a generation of younger people who were introduced to Donald Trump when they were in middle school or early high school years. They have a different kind of connection with him. They see him as more of an anti-hero, and he's made some significant, I think, connections with this group of people. But this overwhelming sense of hopelessness that too many young people I'm hearing about is one of the reasons, I think, that his message around strength and their lack of understanding, in my view, about his record while he was president is something that he's using to build more support today than he did 4 years ago. Well,
that last part is sort of part of the follow-up question I was going to ask you, because a lot of these young voters, frankly, how to pay for putting a roof over your head, or am I going to get the next job or a job, was not something they were thinking about because of their age, obviously, back then. I just wonder, is it a lack of understanding? Is there some overarching anxiety from the COVID pandemic? Where do you think this is coming from, John? And is there anything, and maybe the more important question, is there anything in the next 11 days that Kamala Harris can do about it?
So I think it's more personality than policy driven. I'm quite sure about that. When I talk to younger, right-leaning young people, they have the same concerns, frankly, that Harris is talking about. They're concerned about investing in the middle class and infrastructure and expanding healthcare access. So to me, it's not about necessarily a disconnection with policy. It's really about this image of Trump being kind of stronger and standing up for them. They see the Democratic Party as a party who has been focusing more on women and more on other cohorts within the electorate rather than themselves. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. On the other hand, I do think there's an opportunity. Listen, Kamala Harris is doing better among this group than Joe Biden did just a few months ago. She continues to improve. She could win all younger men. I think she might, actually.
Really?
It's a question of what the margin is. And the idea that I close with in the op-ed that you referenced is a call to national and military service. This is something that shows strength, that shows community, that builds skills, and it's something that connects people. This is an idea, of course, that we've seen every 30 years or so. FDR, JFK, Bill Clinton were 3 presidents who expanded this. I don't think it's too late. In fact, I recently found out that JFK's call for what ended up becoming the Peace Corps came just a few weeks before the election of 1960. So I do think there's time, but I think there needs to be a bigger idea and a bigger vision to bring some of these young people who otherwise agree with Democratic politics back into their corner in the closing days.
Well, Tim, Donald Trump is bringing his vision to Joe Rogan, who, by the way, has been pretty much all over the board politically. He had actually endorsed RFK Jr. for president this time. Previously, he had said he was voting for Bernie Sanders. I want to play a little of what he said about both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
By the way, I'm not a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form. It was like this wheelin' dealin' billionaire character that everybody enjoyed.
Yeah. I felt like he did a decent job.
As president? When
Yeah.
you look at his regulations, it certainly helped the economy.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
that guy who was the
I feel
head
like
of,
we were in a lot better spot then than now, for sure.
without a doubt. Whoever's helping her, whoever's coaching her,
Yeah.
whoever's the puppet master running the strings,
Yeah.
you did a fucking amazing job.
She did a great job.
They did an amazing job from the moment Biden drops out.
So a little bit here, a little bit there. And one of the things I thought of, is there any risk for Donald Trump, Tim, in going on a Rogan? Because you never know where he's going to come from. But then on the other hand, listening to John, you're reminded that Donald Trump's stock and trade has been to be this tough guy. It's been a personality. And I wonder if it doesn't almost matter where he goes. It's going to be the same message. It's just really the demographics.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of risk. I mean, I guess Joe Rogan can make fun of him, and that's what Donald Trump's kryptonite. You can't be strong if you're getting made fun of. So that may be the one thing that I would say is a potential risk to monitor for. But I think that politicians should be doing all of these things, and it's just reality that Donald Trump has been smart to do it, like to go on Joe Rogan, to go on Theo Von's podcast, to do these other ones, and the Democrats know this in other settings, right? Like, for example, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Secretary Pete Buttigieg now, is so good at going into Fox, right, and communicating to that Brett Baer, college-educated Republican audience, right, and trying to poke holes in the arguments. I don't know why the Democrats don't have somebody that is. I thought Tim Walz was maybe going to do this, and he hasn't really gone into these spaces. Look, I think there's the cliche about Hispanics. Hispanics are not a monolith. Young guys are not a monolith. All right, like there's Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, guys that aren't reachable, and then there are Democratic young men. But then there's a big group of guys who are just like Joe Rogan, mixed up and have different views, and they have liberal social views and maybe some conservative views on certain things, and like talking to them, trying to meet with them what they are is important. And I do think that that's been a miss for the Democrats so far this cycle.
Tim Miller and John Della Volpe, thank you.